So welcome to today's workshop. As you know, this is a additional workshop that we provided to help faculty connecting mastery learning as specifications grading with your Canvas course development. So in today's workshop, we're going to talk about how do you connect the Canvas rubrics and outcomes with the Canvas assignment to fit in your specifications grading design. Before we start today's session, I want to let you know that we will offer 4 additional workshops for this series. They are all about how do you implement what you learn. During the boot camp, you learn a lot about pedagogical kind of design. Now we're actually going to use these workshops to show you how to actually make it happen. So today's workshop, we just kind of introduce. Wednesday, we have another session to talk about how do you use a feature called Canvas Learning Mastery Gradebook to view outcome results. So today we're going to learn about how to set up the rubric outcomes with assignments. And Wednesday, we're going to show you how do you look at the results while you're teaching to see how students are doing. Both of them are going to be very valuable for us to redesign the course. Next Monday, we invited Kate and Stephen Min from UCI. They are all peer coaches. They're going to talk a little bit further about, I copied the wrong topic here. So about how to manage your token system on Monday. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna correct this slides in a little bit later. So on Monday, next Monday, we're gonna talk about how to manage the token system for specifications grading. So not only we want to talk about how do you put it on the Excel sheet or the Google sheet, we also want to show you how to onboard students about this new token system and how do you communicate with your TAs to use the token system. Especially for the UCF faculty, you're teaching a large class. So it's very hard for you to kind of work with 400 students at the same time. So it is very important that you communicate with your TAs and kind of onboard them about how to grade with the structure. And the Wednesday next week, August 4th, which is not showing on this slide, and we're going to talk about Gradescope. How do you use Gradescope's rubric and assignment to really set it up the specifications grading and tie it in with your Canvas gradebook? As you know, both San Jose State, Cal Poly Pomona, and UCI, we all have a Gradescope system that's already connected with Canvas. So August 4th, we're going to show you how to set it up on Gradescope, and then that will actually showing on Canvas. So those are the 4 additional workshops that we provided to you. If you want to learn more about these workshops, you can click on this link right here, which I'm going to put the slide link in the chat in a little bit, so you will have all the slides with you. And then we are also going to put this presentation, everything on the Canvas site that you are familiar with, as well as our T website. All right, so that's my housekeeping announcement. And today I am very honored to introduce our presenters. We have Professor Nikos Matos, Professor Mahima Suresh, Professor Burford Thurman, and our wonderful instructional designer, Eileen Chang from San Jose State University. They are going to show us about how to connecting Canvas rubric and outcome with Canvas assignment for specifications grading structure. So let me stop sharing my screen and let's give them a round of applause. And Eileen, feel free to start your presentation. Thank you.
So here's our agenda. So I'm going to spend about 20 minutes to introduce the resources and do a demonstration. And first, and I would like to share the resource with everyone. So in the slides, I do list some like a rubrics idea. Like a rubrics kind of help us to communicate with students and ensure the grade is consistent. And also I kind of list some resource about the rubrics idea, and you can take a look later. And here's assessment examples from our professor, and also we do have a video interview as well. And today we are going to cover, the demonstration is going to cover 3 different features. The first one is like a rubrics. The second one is outcomes, and last one is learning mastery gradebook. So the rubrics, we are going to do the demonstrate like how to add a rubric to an assignment. And okay, so here, and first I kind of like to ask everyone, did anyone use rubrics in Canvas before?
Not in Canvas, but I've written them up to help students understand what's needed and posted them in Canvas.
I see. So in Canvas now, I'm going to do the demonstration like how to add rubrics to an assignment. And actually in Canvas, we have two different methods to add a rubric to an assignment. The method one, I kind of show you screenshot first. And later, if you have your Canvas open, and we may do it together at the same time. So the method one is like we can add a rubric to an assignment or a quiz or ungraded discussion. And the method two is like we can manage rubrics if we already saved some rubrics before. So now let me share my another screen with everyone right now. So now, for example, I'm going to go to our demo site. So for example, now if I open an assignment, so with assignments, and let's say now, like for example, I kind of prepare one already. So for example, when we going to add assignments first, we want to enter the information like about how your grade systems, your grading policies. So once you kind of finish all the input, then you can save it. Once you save it, and you'll be able to see a rubrics here. So this one is kind of finished one. Let me do it one more time. So here. Okay, so here it's kind of like you don't have anything, right? Then you will be able to see a rubrics button. So once you click it, then you can start to add your rubrics if you already have. So from here, then you can, just click the pencil tool, then you can add a description and you can put a long description here and you can update. Also, you can for our purpose, we are going to use specification grading. So basically we kind of would like to have one full mark and the other one is no mark. So you can just click the pencil tool icon and to edit. Then once you have done it, then you can just if you want to add more, then you can add more by duplicate or make a new one. So for example, you put a new one, then you kind of keep going. Then once you have done this, you click create rubrics. Then you should be able to see rubrics here. Then another way to do things is you can find something from your previous class, or if some professor already share rubrics with other faculty, then you should be able to find it from here. So for example, I kind of try to find a rubrics from our TA demo site, and I already have one already, so I can just click the rubrics. Then I click add it. So now the rubrics will be attached to your assignment right now. So any question right now?
Hi, Eileen.
Yes.
We're still using UCIs, correct?
Now we use UCI's example.
So if you want to implement this in my course, it's not available at this time, correct?
It's not available at this time, but I do have examples, so I can share it with you later. So here's kind of like a one way to add rubrics. The other way is kind of from the course navigation menu. So for example, from the course navigation menu, you can see rubrics. So once you click rubrics here, then you will be able to see a button called add rubrics. So you can add your rubrics from here. So also this site is called like allow you to manage all your rubrics. So let's say like all your rubrics will be saved here. So next time, if we want to use the same rubrics, then you are able to do it by going to assignment. And just for example, now I kind of go into assignment. Now I go into my assignment one more time. And now I want to edit my rubric. So for example, I can find another rubric and attach to it. So now I kind of like change another text rubric right now.
Yeah, I tried to visit my class and I found rubric and I saw table, so it's okay for me. I hope so.
Table, I think you later we have professor will kind of cover this topic during the breakout room, and you can join the section too. So rubrics we can share too. So for example, like let's say if you want to share the rubrics and you let me go back to my resource one more time. So for example, in the comments here, the resource I list comments here, and it means like for example, if you would like to share some rubrics with some professors, you are able to do it. So for example, you can share it with comments, and when you share it with comments, and you can share the rubrics with your college only, or with your department only, or with like a couple of professors only. So like they have different setup for you to select. So any other questions right now?
So Eileen, is it you have to do it through Commons? That's the only way you can share a rubric with others?
You don't need to do it with Commons. It's kind of like one of the options. So college-wide, so for example, if you want to, or the other way, it's kind of you can share it with other professors. Like let's say if you have like a share Canvas course, but normally we kind of share it in Commons, and we share it with like a certain professors. Or for our college, and you can make a request to university, they may be open to certain college or certain department only. So now we are going to talk about the outcomes. As we know, rubrics kind of allow professor and student to communicate about students' learning expectation for an assignment grading. And outcomes can be used aligned with the rubrics for additional assessment and measurable performance, and also can be used to track students' progress, like by the desired learning outcomes. And it also have like a different level, like for example, college level, department level, program level, or course level. So let's say anyone want to share your Canvas course right now?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So
would you mind click on outcomes?
Outcomes. Okay. So outcomes.
From the navigation?
Here. Okay.
No, outcomes. Yes. Okay, so when you click outcomes, you can see, like first, we will need to set up the outcomes first. So for example, the add outcomes, the first one is kind of allow you to add like individual outcomes. And the second one is allow you to add global outcomes. And also if you have like a spreadsheet, you are able to import too. And for our university, if you click find, would you mind click find here? I mean, for San Jose State. And once you click find here, and you should be able to find some outcomes. Can you click here? It's account level. So for example, if you click any of them, yes. So we do have some airbag standard, I think. Can you click one more time? Yes, and can you click SLO1? So we do have some outcomes set up already. So from here, and if you click import, then you should, so let's kind of for the college level, we cannot change, but we are able to find the outcomes if we plan to use it. And here's kind of like for the college level. So would you mind click cancel? So if you want, so let's say if you want to just create the outcomes for your course level, then you can click at yes, plus outcome, yes. So you can put the name of the outcomes, just any example. So we don't need to put a description right now, but here it's kind of for you to enter the description. So here it's kind of like the range, the rating range. So you can edit. So now we just keep it as. So would you mind just click save? So now if you go into your one of your assignments, you already have rubrics.
I think it's empty.
Yes, good.
Please choose at least
just
one.
your
Okay,
file.
so how about
anything?
Okay.
Okay, so you click save. That's okay. Just click save right now. So now, let's say you want to add the rubrics. Can you just click the button? Do you have something already, or if you don't? If you have something, and you can click find a rubrics. Okay, so just click any one because this one is kind of, for example, you can delete immediately. So you can select a rubric. You will, yes, that's good. Okay, so now you can see a rubric, right? So would you mind to scroll down, please? Just keep going. Okay, I'm sorry. You need to click the edit button to add the outcomes right now.
This one.
I'm not this one here. Too quick. That's
sorry.
okay. That's okay. Yeah.
Cancel. So click on what?
Click save one more time. This one.
One more time.
Yes. Okay, and can you scroll up a little bit? Yes, and here's like a pencil icon. Click the pencil icon.
Yes. That one. Okay.
Yes. And would you mind to scroll down and keep going, and you want to find outcomes? Yeah.
Click on that.
Yes, click on that.
This one.
Yes. So you click import. So would you mind to scroll down, please, and click update? So how to build the outcomes? Would you mind to scroll up? So now you already add the rubrics, and also you align with your outcomes. And how to build the outcomes? You can click on the grade book.
Grades.
But when you click on grade book and grades, yes. So if you click on this grade book here, can you click on yes? So just click one more time. So can you click on learning mastery grade book? So you should be able to see the outcomes here. But since we don't have anything right now, so we cannot view it. But if you add outcomes, you'll be able to see the outcomes. It's clear right now, or?
Much more clear than I knew before, so that's good. Don't feel quite confident yet, but
yeah. Okay. So let's ask other professors. Do you have any questions or any input? Okay. So again, here's the resource. So now we are going to have 30 minutes, and for faculty, come here. For faculty showcase and panel discussions. So I'm not going to share screen, but everyone can open your document yourself. So here's kind of questions. So now the first question is Professor, can you share your steps you used when you developed the rubrics? So let me stop share right now. So Mahima, you would like to say first, or Nichols?
Sure, I can share whatever I have. Usually when I have not done the specification grading rubric before in a class, but typically when I do the rubric, it's mostly to help the students understand what is expected of them. I can actually share what I had earlier and how I converted that into specification grading. That should help. Let's see. Yeah. So to give everybody context, this is a lab assignment where the students had 2 questions, and the rubric is designed to help them understand what they will be graded on and what they should complete to get a particular number of points in the lab. In this particular rubric, there is the array stack is one part of the assignment, and there's another algorithm that they have to implement using that, and they're kind of linked together, and the rubrics do build off of one another. And as such, I developed this rubric right from the get-go when I start writing the assignment, so that I know how much of it is a good enough amount for the students to take on. Because usually these points, although they are pretty arbitrary now that I think about it, when specification grading was introduced, I figured out that these are very arbitrary. The scoring is somewhat similar, somewhat based on how much effort the students put in. Sorry. There's another participant who was very good to give his comments. But anyway, so this is the rubric that uses points. Now, if I have to convert the same rubric into specification grading, that actually makes it very clear what is expected of the students and how much mastery should we expect from them. And for this example, I changed it in this way. So the class declaration and basic functions, these are the things that they need to complete. And I followed one of what Nikos had used in one of his courses, the binary thing, and not the high pass and low pass version. And this is kind of the rubric that comes about. So there's a class declaration and definition, and the algorithm, for example, this is the implementation using this, completeness and compiling and running it. Now it's very clear what the students are required to do, and there are 10 of them, and they have to complete it, complete a part of it to get credit for this. I want to show one other cool thing that I figured out. Here it is. Yeah. So one of the things that I figured out, instead of explicit, managing the high pass and low pass, if you have such a thing for your specification grading, was a grading scheme. So I have something like this. So you can create grading schemes on Canvas. This comes under settings, and you can create a scheme that looks like this. So if they get 80% or above, the grade on that assignment comes up as high pass by default. So we don't have to do anything. The TA just has to grade the assignment, use the rubric, and that's pretty much it. And the way you can set this up is by going into grading schemes, and it comes up here. And let me show you how that is done as well. So in settings, yeah, so this is, you can enable grading schemes for the course, and then that will give you the option of setting grading schemes. And then you can manage the grading schemes, and that's where you can have high pass, low pass, or whatever other letter grade that you want to give to the students. Yeah, so just one other thing that I can demo for the specifications rubric is the alignment with outcomes. Just like what Buff was doing earlier, you can align the outcome, and that once you create the outcome just the way he showed. I just want to add one additional thing here, that so if you find the outcome, for example, you can eliminate it from the scoring criteria. So that way it doesn't show up in the final score, and it doesn't mess with any of the letter grading or whatever else you have. But if the students meet expectations or exceed expectation, it will show up eventually in the learning mastery gradebook and not in the point version of the gradebook. That will be an easy way to segregate the two things. So yeah, that was my demo of the rubric and how I set it up.
Okay, so Nicole, would you mind share yours or?
Yes, I just opened, I turned on my mic. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start first with my old rubric, which actually Buff was involved in developing it, and Thalia and Claire Comivus, and I don't remember who else. So let me share my screen. As you probably know, we ask students to do experiments, write lab reports, and we expect them to include a bunch of stuff in the lab reports. But in this particular case, we were all struggling with what it means to design an experiment. And so we felt the need to be a little bit more explicit about what we expect from the students. So this is where the rubric came in, because the rubric basically allows you to lay down the expectations of what you want the students, to include. So we came up with, I'm trying to count here, 9 steps for a student to design an experiment. And for each one of the steps, we described the behaviors that the students needed to exhibit in order to get a high score, a medium score, or a low score. So the highest score here was 4. So for example, the first step in the design process was, given the general goal of an experiment, we expected the student to design specific measurable objectives for the experiment. And so to get a 4, the objectives would have to be complete, conceptually correct, concise, specific and clear, and use correct technical terminology and grammar. And then we had also behavior to get a 3, to get a 2, and if no objectives were defined, of course, the student would get a 2. So we defined these kinds of performances for each step of the experimental design process, and that's basically what the rubric, was about. Now we incorporated that, or at least I incorporated that in my class, on something that kind of looks like a rubric, but it's not. It's more of a checklist, and I wanted the students to include an abstract in their experiment, the experimental design, which you can see was a big chunk of the grade, and then the experimental results, the discussion, references, and appendices. But notice that I did not take the time to explain thoroughly what I expected the students to include in each appendix or even in the abstract, right? So I read an abstract, and for some students I gave a 7, for some a 5, right? And sometimes you can get in trouble because a student can come back to you and say, hey, why did you give me a 5? I thought the abstract, was pretty good. So now I'm going to show you what I did with this rubric, converting it into specifications grading. Okay, so now I took the time to define what a good abstract looks like. And I say summarize in 1 paragraph, 200 words or less, the goals and objectives of the experiment, the design and major findings of the experiment, and how well results agree with theory, published data, and any simulations performed. Instead of having a scale from 0 to 4, which I normally use in rubrics, or actually sometimes I use 0 to 10, for specifications grading, I use a high pass, a low pass, and a needs revision. I could use only 1 or 2, 1 or 0. 0 means need revision, and 1 is a pass, right? But I usually like to have a little bit better resolution. So if a student does really well, you know, I can give them a 2. If a student does okay, then I can give them a 1. So this is basically my described performance for a good abstract. If the student misses some of these things, then I'll give them a low pass. The experimental design, I took basically the performance from the highest score, all the 4s, in other words. I looked at the performance that the student will have to achieve in order to get a 4 in each of the 9 steps of the design of experiment. And I copied that here. So basically that would give the student, you know, a high pass. And again, if the student, you know, misses 1 or 2 of those things, then I would give them a low pass. If they miss most of them, then I would tell them, you know, it needs to be revised. So same thing with experimental results. Now it is a rubric because I explain explicitly what I expect from the student, you know, in order to get the high pass. Same thing for the discussion, same thing for the references, et cetera, et cetera. So now what's new with the specifications grading is, okay, you know, so I have a bunch of 2s and 1s and 0s, maybe, you know, needs revision. How do I know whether the student is passing this lab or needs to revise it in order to get a passing grade, or whether the student gets an A or a B, you know, whatever. So this is what was new, you know, for me for specifications grading. If I look at the experimental design section, which was the most challenging for the students, I basically arbitrarily decided that if a student gets a low pass in 7 out of 9 steps, including the 2 essential sections. So I have basically the research part, summarize relevant theory is essential, summarize previous data is essential. So they have to get a pass on these 2 sections. And if they get 7 out of 9, then a low passes, then basically they have a passing grade on the experimental design. To get a passing grade in the lab, which is 70% or the equivalent of a B minus, then I arbitrarily decided that the student would need a low pass in 3 essential sections of the lab report. And those are the experimental design, the presentation of the experimental results, and the discussion of the results. So in other words, if they goof off on the abstract, the appendices, and some of the other sections, as long as they get a low pass in these 3 essential sections, which are pretty hefty actually, they're long sections, then they basically pass that lab. For higher grades, then I raise the bar and I expect high pass in at least 2 of the 3 essential sections, plus low pass in all the remaining. To get an A, high pass in all 3 essential sections, plus low pass in all the remaining sections. And to get an A plus, 3 out of 3 high passes in essential sections, plus abstract and references, which I have not mentioned yet, and low pass in the rest of the sections of the lab report. So I'm going to stop here for a second and see if anyone has any questions.
How many lab reports do you have, Nikos?
So depending on the course, in my two aerodynamics courses, we have 4 lab reports in each class. And we consider them gateway assignments for ABIT. So in other words, we pick one of the courses, the second one, not both of them. So the students have to average 70% in the 4 lab reports. And so if they don't get 70% on a report, they don't have to redo it if they get 80, 90, or 100% on the other 3. But if they don't average 70% on all 4 of them, then they have to redo 1 or more until the average gets to be 70%.
And if on any one report they don't get 70% or better, they have to revise, or if they get a check in the needs revision section, how do you handle that?
Yeah, so if they get, let's say, needs revision on the abstract and needs revision on appendices, but they get high passes and low passes on the rest, then they pass, and they may get a B or a B plus, right? So they don't have to pass every single section of the lab. Just like any other scoring rubric that you use. I mean, you allow students some slack.
Thank you, Nico.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. It looks like there's a comment in there about sharing that template that you just showed, so people don't have to start from scratch.
Sure. And then I also want to show you on Canvas. I don't have this particular one. Let me see, share screen. This is from a different course. It's a systems leadership, complexity, and systems thinking. So the students had a hard time responding, to this particular assignment. I asked them to define their system. And so originally I found, a way to help them develop, their writing by writing questions. So I say, okay, you have to answer these 19 questions. And the first question was, what is your system? Second one is, what is the purpose or the main function of your system, et cetera, et cetera. These questions are really course learning objectives written in the form of questions. So when I made the rubric, instead of putting questions here, I just wrote the learning objectives. So number 1, define the system. Number 2, state the purpose of your system. Number 3, describe the elements of your system, both tangible and intangible. And I decided to mark some of them as essential because I really want the students to answer them. Some of them I just let them, be. And notice that when you do that, you're not going to end up with an even number. Like before, when I graded this assignment, I had a scale from 0 to 100. Well, now I have 19 objectives, right? It is 19. It's not 15, it's not 10, and it's not 50 or 100. So be it, right? But I had to come up with a scale and decide, for example, that the student would have to get a low or a high pass in 17 out of the 19. So I allow them to miss 2 and still, pass the assignment. And they don't have to get 2, so they can get 1s, and they still pass the assignment. And I can show you just one. Can you see my screen here? Is that shared?
Yes.
It is, okay. So this is a student, got a good score, so you can see that, I gave them, 2 out of 2 in almost all of them. I wrote a comment on this one, and I gave 1 out of 2. This one was needs revision, right? But the student got an A+ basically because they got 35 out of 38, so they don't need to revise the one that they missed. And the nice thing about this is that the student, this one and others, they did not get this right the first time. Nobody guessed this, a 35 out of 38 the first time. So this may have been the second or the third time. And so that gives me an opportunity to write comments here and say 0 out of 2. And, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to revise. This is what you need to add, et cetera, et cetera. So when they submit a revised edition of the paper, I look at the scores that I have. So if they have 2 out of 2, then I don't mess with them. I only look at the discussion of the paper where they have, 0 out of 2, and that's where they need basically to improve.
Okay, thank you, Nico. So our next question will be, do you have any recommendation for those professors if they are new to rubrics, or any recommendation for converting your existing rubrics to specification grading rubrics? Bob, would you mind share your input?
Sure. Well, let's see. I guess what I could do is show the rubric that I developed for the breakout session, and I could show what had been done before. Give me 1 second here to find the pre-specifications version, because then I can show this other one. So maybe you guys can ask Nikos some more questions while I do that. So hold on.
Nikos, I asked in the chat whether you discuss with the students what constitutes a low pass or high pass before an assignment is submitted.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Like this past summer, the class was really jammed. It was like 3 weeks, and I'm still getting revisions from students. So if I have time in class, and I realize that the students have difficulty understanding, what the I take the time and say, okay, this is what a high pass looks like. Actually, go lower than that, then you get a low pass. And if you miss a lot, then you get, needs revision. And,
okay.
And Carlos asked if I have them revise only the specific sections that need revision. So the answer is yes. I only ask them to revise those sections.
Okay, so if there are no more questions for Nikos on this, I can share. This is a sort of the pre-specifications version of a scoring kind of a sheet for lab reports in the class that I'm working on converting to specifications grading. So it's on lab reports, summary section, results and discussion, conclusions, sort of a overall style grammar, and some out of 50 points score. So to move that over to the specifications, what I've done, and I'll show more of this on how to convert from the spreadsheet to a rubric directly. This is the specs kind of version of this with the criteria. So, in the previous one, it did have something about, a summary that was scored with 5 points. And now the specs version, it breaks down what should be in that summary as kind of the criteria with a long description of, what good version of what was done or how it was done is shown here. And then for the rubric, it either meets with the 1 point or it's revised with 0 points. I was experimenting with, the more levels and, like not available to evaluate kind of things. But these first couple columns just deal with, it either meets the spec of, including what it should, or they need revision. So this is the spreadsheet version of it, and I'll show in the breakout session how to take this directly from the spreadsheet and convert it into a Canvas rubric. So you don't have to type all this into Canvas, and allows you to rearrange things within Excel or a spreadsheet.
So now it's almost the time for Q&A, but we still have questions. I think probably we would like to hear questions from our professor. Do any professor have questions so far, or?
I got a question, Eileen.
Yes.
So I probably set mine up wrong because I'm doing it for a copy 180 class I'm teaching. I just set the grading. I have a rubric that's got 30 points on it, 6 areas, and then I give all the students if it works or not. And I didn't get any pushback about it's all or nothing grading from that mastery concept, but I couldn't figure out a way to make the mastery part of the thing work with the rubric part of the thing because of the way the points work and everything. And so also I just didn't figure out in time how to get Canvas not to show the gradebook stuff, but to just show the mastery part of it. And so didn't get any pushback from students so far. They seem to like the idea. And so we'll see how it goes. But the biggest hangup I had was I put the same rubric on all the assignments. And then I found out that you cannot attach a different learning outcome to different rubrics that are the same one. You can't copy, you can't assign the same rubric everywhere, even if it's the same. You have to copy them, and I have to go back and fix all that. So is there some way to get around that little bugaboo in Canvas, or it's just the way it works?
I think like you can go create a rubrics by going to the rubrics navigation menu. I mean, manage rubrics from there, and you can add the outcomes by going to manage your rubrics site page.
Yeah, my problem is I put the same rubric on 8 assignments. And the outcomes go by rubric, they don't go by assignment. I figured that out too late.
Yeah, if you copy the same rubric over to another assignment and then edit it, it saves it as a new rubric. I can show you on my practice course.
Yeah, unfortunately, I assigned the same rubric to each assignment. I have to go back, and I can't undo the rubrics once students have turned in homework. No. So I'm stuck with what I got for the semester.
Yeah, once they submit it, you can't do anything about it. But yeah, something like this, right? So if I have another new assignment, let me say this is a new rubric. Okay. Now I don't need to do anything, save it. Yeah, so if I look for another rubric and this course, yeah. So if I just pick any of these rubrics, use it, and now if I go ahead and edit it, it'll actually tell me that any change will be a new rubric, so I can make any changes here, and maybe this one doesn't have something, it has something else instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
When rubric's already in use and you can't change the outcome.
Yeah, that if you have already used it and if students have already been graded on it, then there's nothing much you can do.
Okay, I'll just have to fix it the next semester when I do it again.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm learning.
Okay, any other questions?
So I can let students see outcomes, or I can let them see points. They seem to always see both if I turned on the outcomes, at least in student view. Is there a way not to let them see the points because the outcomes and the points aren't the same thing?
Yes, I think Mahima showed it earlier, when you create your outcomes and you can hide the points from students. So students, they would not be able to see the points.
Okay, so in the grade book, they won't see the points?
Yes, and also I will share the resource with you today or tomorrow.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm just manually putting in, go, no go kind of scores for them. Okay. And that seems to work. Okay, I'll let everybody else go. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we may have questions for our professor speaker today, presenter now. So what's your recommendation for professor if they are new to rubrics?
I hope to have a simple step-by-step instruction, either as a YouTube video or as a PowerPoint. So can have from basic 1 to 3.
Okay, thank you.
Eileen,
Yeah.
Is it true?
Yes.
Is it true that once you set up a rubric, you use SpeedGrader to input the scores after you review the report or the experiment outcome, or whatever you report or whatever you review? But basically, you manually put that in as a score in SpeedGrader, or can you highlight the rubric and then it'll automatically tally up the total score for the report? How do you use SpeedGrader with it?
So basically, it's kind of like a different level, for example, we kind of add a rubrics. Let me share the screen one more time. So for example, so now, for example, this is a test assignment. We can see there's already like an insert rubrics already. So how to grade it mean if you publish the course already, the assignment already, then you should be able to click the SpeedGrader. Can we click SpeedGrader here? Oh, you haven't published yet, right? That's not.
I'm going to publish it.
I can show it.
Okay.
Let me show it to you from the beginning.
Just go back to assignment first.
Yeah, let me
yes.
start from scratch. So yeah, this is the one that I published.
So next you
do SpeedGrader. Yeah.
So next you click SpeedGrader. Then next you will need to click View Rubrics. So from here, yeah. Then
yeah, I can just do this. Just showing, save it, and then it shows the grade.
Yeah. So the gradebook SpeedGrader allow you to assign student score and also allow students to see their scores, but it's different from the outcomes. So Mahima, would you mind go back to your assignments and we can see if you add outcomes already or not?
This assignment doesn't have the outcomes. I have
see.
one more. I can show that one.
Yes. So rubrics is different from outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me publish this, and I'll just make it so that there's no submission. Then I don't have to submit something from the student view. No submission. Okay, if my computer lets me move my mouse. Okay. No submission.
So this one you already have outcomes already.
This has one outcome. Yeah. Yeah, this has an outcome in the end.
So this example is like Mahima already add outcomes here.
So I can do this. Just randomly entering some scores. Yeah.
Okay, so now if we want to see the results, and we can go back to a gradebook. So let's say student they already see their rubrics. So now you want to see the outcomes and you want to click on the gradebook here, and you should be able to see learning.
Oh, I should enable it. This is actually a good point because it doesn't come by default.
I see. So would you mind to go to the settings? So first we need to go just go into the settings first. Yes. So now we are going to enable the mastery learning gradebook. Otherwise, we cannot see it. So click the feature. Feature, yes. And you want to enable mastery. This one, yes. This one.
Oh, student. Okay. Let me give it.
No, this one. Learning. Yes.
Okay.
So if you disable a student learning master gradebook, they cannot see it, but you can see it. So, so now if you go back to grades and click one more time, so now you can see learning master. So here's kind of how it looks. So, So James, any questions right now, or?
Can you put the outcomes on quizzes?
Yes. Yes, you can do. I figured it out just over the weekend, and I was so excited. So for the quizzes, it needs to come from the question banks. This is a different course. Let me do it in my practice course. Quizzes. And okay. Yeah. So under question banks, you can create a question bank and align that with the outcomes. Once you create the question bank, you can align an outcome. So if I select some outcome, you can set the mastery level at any level. That means they have to complete 60% of the questions in the quiz from this question bank to get the mastery level.
So what happens if the quiz draws from multiple question banks? How do you handle that? Where maybe the quiz is aligned to some outcome, but it pulls questions from multiple banks?
I'm not sure. I have to experiment with that.
Mahim said, what if our tests and quizzes will start to be in person? I'm having an in-person class. So all of this is great with online quizzes and online homeworks, but how do we do that with Canvas when we have paper submissions?
That would probably be like an assignment. I just have to take a break.
So to that last question, has anyone set a course up in Canvas to be an in-person course, but at the same time take advantage of Canvas? So you have your students show up with their laptops or their whatever devices they have and take a quiz through Canvas in the actual classroom. Does that sort of thing work?
I think it still should work.
I've done it before COVID and it worked fine because everybody's got a phone and you can take a quiz on a phone with no trouble.